Alright folks, so here we are, Wednesday, April 1st, 2020. So I hope this finds you well. Just a couple things to add on to Section 3 and everything else. But as always, just some quick things that are going on. Again, planning to be back Monday, April 27th. Don't know if that's necessarily going to happen, but that is still the plan. Nothing has been changed as far as that stuff goes. All testing has been canceled, everything else. Starting Friday, guys, April 3rd, you do not have to do anything. That is the beginning of spring break. Just as always, there will be no other stuff posted, no other updates or anything else like that will be going on in any way, shape, or form. So please make sure you understand what's going on there. So for today, guys, what we're going to get into is the next part of our eFolio, and then just a couple different things about free enterprise, which is the term for capitalism here in the United States and what goes into it. So yesterday, what we got into just a little bit was this idea of free enterprise and what it goes through, and it's the idea of free competition, free contract, different kinds of things that are available for people to have a lot of freedom as much as you can when it comes to determining how you make money, how you make a living, what do you do for things here in the United States of America with our version of capitalism, which we call a free enterprise system. So today, what it's basically going to look at, guys, is a couple different things as far as how do we go through it, what happens with it, and then how do we basically track this over a period of time. So here's the deal. People want to know what is the situation when it comes to regards of how do we basically track what is called, a good economic system, what is a bad economic system, all those different kinds of things in between. So here's what we do. To basically determine whether or not an economic system is being successful, we follow it with what's called a business cycle. This is basically what we call quarters, where you have every 3 months, and you basically chop up a 12-month time period a year into 4 sections. And a business cycle is macroeconomic, so it's looking at a big picture, full country scale, and it's looking at this one thing right here, which is called GDP, which is called gross domestic product. This whole idea of gross domestic product is looking at the total value of all new final goods and services produced in a particular economy. This basically means, and this is the key part, a final good is a finished product, okay? Think for an example of if you bought a set of tires for a car. If you bought a set of tires but you have no other part of that car, that's not a finished product. If you were to buy an engine but you have no place to put that engine, you do not have a finished product. So the only thing that we count in gross domestic product is the finalization and the selling of a finished good, all right, a finished product. Same thing with a cell phone, like for a cell phone. If you have a SIM card but no cell phone, the SIM card is worthless. It doesn't do anything. If you have a cell phone case but have no cell phone, it doesn't serve any purpose. So the final good that is sold, we don't track things like tires, cell phone cases, that kind of stuff. What we track is a final finished product that doesn't need any add-ons as far as all those different kinds of things as well. So what happens is we take everything that is sold throughout 1 year that is brand new. It has to be brand new. You don't track old stuff like an old used car or old stuff on eBay. It has to be brand new, off the line, to be able to go through all these different kinds of things. So to give you guys like this example, just so you can kind of see, and I showed you guys this website if you had me for government. This is going to be the U.S. debt clock. If you look at this debt clock, and there's no telling what this is going to look like as far as this right here, you'll notice this right here where it says U.S. gross domestic product, okay? And that number is still going up ever so slightly. But where it says right here, U.S. gross domestic product, and it says basic measure of market value of all final goods and services. Literally, if we were to take everything that the United States of America has sold in the last year, All right, that's what our gross domestic product is. And you actually notice, even though it's green, it is dropping. All right, at this particular point, which is not a good thing. But this is how we determine whether or not a country is successful. It is gross domestic product. It is this idea of, if you were to add up everything they sold, brand new, finished stuff, that's how much a country is worth, and that's how you track whether or not the country's making money or losing money. One of the things that I kind of explain in government is this thing called national debt, which is the biggest box over here, is this idea of we're spending more money than they're making, and people are starting to freak out. Well, here's why we're not in that bad of a shape. We do have one of the largest national debts on the planet, but we also have one of the largest gross domestic products. So if you want to see how much money we're actually in the hole, you take the debt and then subtract the gross domestic product from it. Now, if you were to do that, that's where it kind of levels out, where we owe basically about $2 trillion instead of 23. So this is how we basically rate an economy. It is the idea of GDP and gross domestic product. That is the biggest thing. It is final new goods and services. Only brand new stuff, only completed stuff. So 2018 Chevys and Fords and Volkswagens don't count. 2020 and 2021 cars, those do count towards our gross domestic product. But if the United States of America is not making that finished car, it doesn't count. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. And if we have American companies that aren't making cell phones, okay, you don't count that in the gross domestic product. If we're buying it from China, that counts towards China's GDP and everything else. So this is how you basically rank a country as far as how much money they're making and whether or not it's successful in the grand scheme of things. And it's there that I wanted you guys just to kind of see this today as far as everything else. And this is on 3.2. It talks about this idea of GDP counting. And then the next part I'll get to here in just a second, which is called an externality. GDP counting again, would a car transmission be considered a final good or product? The answer there is no, it's not, because a car transmission has to have other pieces for it to do its job. If you have a car transmission, you have to have a car. If you don't have one and the same, you don't get all these different types of things. All right. And the next part says, would a car transmission be calculated into GDP? No, it would not. If it's not a final finished product, it does not count as far as this stuff goes. And you can look at all these different kinds of things on that, and hopefully no big deal there. The next part is what's called an externality, guys. Okay, so an externality is basically what we call an economic side effect, where you have a creation of a job, you have a creation of a product, and something happens as a result of it. Some examples would be like, if we were to build a dam like TVA does here in our area, a good externality would be, more hydroelectric power, that kind of stuff. More swimming for people that want to go out in the lake, boating, fishing, that kind of stuff. A negative externality would be, excuse me, it's going to change wildlife, different kinds of things. So this is where an externality, guys, is a side effect. If you were to basically, have a brand new company that makes cell phones and they put a giant factory here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, good externality would be more jobs. Bad externality would be maybe they have some pollution and stuff in the local water supply, that kind of thing. If you decide to move next door to a club, the good externality would be like, hey, if you move next door to a club, you can always go to the club that's close by. The bad one may be, hey, you're going to have a lot of noise late at night. You may not get as much sleep as you are used to. So this is what we call an economic side effect. There's a good or a bad thing that happens as a result of something that somebody is doing. We call that externality. So the example that I want you guys to look at is to basically just look at these stories and see, is the externality or a side effect a good thing or a bad thing? So like right here, Volkswagen, a couple years ago, they had a big scandal where they were lying about carbon emissions and pollution from their cars and their manufacturing stuff. So if you look at this, all right, the bad externality is bad publicity, everything else like that. Positive externality maybe coming out of this would be like, hey, they're going to have to actually deal with pollution control and stuff at their plants. So if you look at it, it says just tell me the summary, 2 positive things, 2 negative side effects that come from this particular story. That's all you're doing. An externality is a side effect of some kind of event that takes place at some particular point in time. All right, so that should be 3.2 for your trackers and saviors, basically looking at how we monitor whether or not a country's economy is being successful, something we call gross domestic product or GDP, and then side effects from things that happen. That's what we call an externality here in the United States. All right, so that should take care of your stuff for, like I said, the eFolio, and we will get into the rest of that tomorrow and finish it up for everything else. So if you're doing the packet, let me kind of jump into the packet here, guys, so you can kind of see this. All right, if you're jumping into the packet as far as free enterprise and everything else, free enterprise is also capitalist. We talked about that. The ability for everyone to enter and compete in a marketplace, that is open opportunity. We went through all those different things. Yesterday we went through, how does free enterprise allocate resources again. So if you're looking at all this and you want to fill this stuff in, all right, consumers, they buy stuff. Producers, they don't just sell, they provide stuff. And then the government's job is to control and monitor. It's literally that simple in a free enterprise system. Okay, so don't make it any harder than that as far as what goes into it. The next one, when you're dealing with profit and everything else, profit is this idea of selling a product from the revenue gained by producing it. So that is the answer there for number one. When you want to deal with how do you make money, it looks at how much the cost is versus how much you make off of selling it. And everybody pretty much gets that. That's pretty self-explanatory. A modified free enterprise economy is a type of mixed economy. Okay, again, if it's free enterprise, guys, it is the idea of anybody, anywhere can join any company at any point and doing all those different kinds of things. So hopefully no issue there. All right, we've gone through all that. The next one, dealing with government, okay, and free enterprises as far as all this. It says goods and services provided by the government and consumed by the public as a group. This is what we call a public good. All right, this is something that everybody gets out of a government, and this is why it's called mixed, because the government still controls things. Biggest example of a public good would be like roads. Everybody has equal access to a road. Whether you have a car or not, you can use a road to walk on it, drive on it, whatever it may be. All right. Highways, mass transit, and education, healthcare are, again, you could use this as a public good or you could use it as infrastructure. It would be one of those two things as the same. All right. Getting cash for birthday is an example, of a subsidy where somebody literally pays you for something. Government payment that helps cover costs and economic activity considered to be in public interest. You could use it as a transfer payment or a safety net. It's up to you. And then a side effect, talked about this today, that is an externality. Anytime you have a side effect, as far as that stuff goes, that's going to be your answer there. All right, so we will finish up the last couple of pages tomorrow, go through the last couple multiple choice questions for everything else. Again, guys, remember, Section 3 is going to be due tomorrow, April 2nd. Starting Friday, April 3rd, you do not have anything else that will be dropped in to your class, and you'll be off until April 10th, and then we will come back with some more online stuff to kind of continue on with this as we go. So hope this finds you well. Hope it finds without too many issues, and talk more tomorrow.